14 people have asked to buy a link from me. 2 of them actually paid. I want to show you the sell side because everything written about buying links is written from the buyer's chair, and the view from this one is different in ways that would have changed how I bought. Here is the whole funnel. 14 inquiries, 12 of them quoted at $250, 1 at $100, 1 as a swap with no money involved. Of those 14, 1 paid and the link went live. 1 more is live under a different arrangement. 1 has been sitting in limbo for weeks. And 11 are still exactly where they were the day I sent the quote. 11 out of 14 never replied to a price. I had assumed, before I started tracking this properly, that selling placements was mostly a question of having inventory somebody wanted. The actual bottleneck sits much earlier than that, and it is nothing to do with the price you name, what they asked for before they asked the price. Here is the first thing that surprised me. Serious buyers do not open by asking what a link costs. They open by asking where it goes. The one who paid wanted second position in a ranked comparison article, not a link in the article, second place in the list. And when we got into detail, he wanted that position reflected in the summary table at the top as well as in the prose below. The $100 inware was the same shape. He asked for the 4th spot in a specific listicle. He named the position before he named a budget. That tells you what experienced buyers actually believe they are purchasing. They want a placement in a ranking that a reader will scan and act on. The link itself is almost incidental to that, a technical detail attached to the real product, which is the position. There is a second thing they asked for that took me longer to understand: the anchor. The buyer who paid wanted his anchor changed from the plain domain to his product name because his company had rebranded and the old name was the one my article used. Read that as a brand consistency request rather than an SEO one. It came from someone who tracks where his product name appears across the web and found an outdated one. I changed it, it cost me nothing, and it mattered more to him than anything else in the deal. Which is worth sitting with for a second because it cuts against how these conversations usually get framed. A good share of link buyers are simply managing how their brand shows up on pages their customers already read. No ranking campaign behind it, no search engine in the picture at all. They found a stale mention and they want it corrected. Once you see that, the pitch changes. You are selling shelf space on a page people actually visit, and the ranking benefit is a bonus you can mention rather than the entire propositions. It also explains why some buyers care intensely about wording and not at all about whether the link is followable. Why 250 stuck? I landed on $250 for a do-follow placement on an established article, and I have quoted that same number 12 times now. It is not a scientific figure. It came from what agencies were charging me for comparable placements, roughly $160 to $200, plus a margin for the fact that my article already ranks and theirs is a fresh guest post that may never rank at all. I stopped discounting it early. When I tried flexing on price, the conversations did not convert any better. They just converted at less money. The 11 that went quiet at $250, and I am fairly confident they would have gone quiet at $180. What actually lands in the account? Now the part nobody mentions. The number you quote is not the number you receive. The buyer who paid sent $263 through a payment platform's goods and services route, which is the buyer protected option and carries a fee. It landed as 325 Singapore dollars and some change, which after the fee and the currency conversion nets out at roughly the 250 I had quoted. He covered the fee himself, which is why the figure he sent was higher than the price. That was thoughtful and it is not typical. More often, the buyer sends exactly the quoted amount through a fee-bearing route, and you quietly absorb 5% or so. So quote your price and state the payment method in the same message. If they want buyer protection, the fee is theirs. The crypto ones, the $100 buyer asked to pay in stablecoin. I sent an invoice and a wallet address. That was weeks ago. I have chased once, politely, with the addresses resent in the same thread. No transaction hash, no refusal either, just nothing. And this is the thing about crypto payment in this business. It is genuinely convenient, it settles fast, and it works fine with people who intend to pay. but it removes every intermediate step where a normal payment rail would have created friction and therefore commitment. There is no authorization, no pending charge, no receipt to chase. The buyer can simply drift away, and there is nothing to unwind because nothing ever started. I still accept it. I just no longer treat an invoice sent as a deal, and I do not hold a slot open on the strength of one. What the 11 dead quotes have in common. I went back through them looking for a pattern, and there is one, though it is uncomfortable. Almost all of them arrived as short generic outreach. No specific article named, no anchor proposed, no target URL. Some version of, "Hi, do you accept guest posts or paid links on your site?" I replied with a real quote and real terms, and that was the end of it. The two that converted both arrived with the specifics already in hand. This exact article, this position, this anchor, pointing here. So the qualifying signal turns out to be whether they have already done the work of deciding what they want. Budget does not predict it, politeness does not predict it. Someone who names the page has a campaign behind them. Someone asking whether you accept links is sending that same message to 400 sites and will buy from whoever answers cheapest. Two buyers, one article, worth mentioning what happens when demand concentrates. Two separate inquiries came in for the same comparison article, weeks apart, both at $250. That is fine, and I said yes to both in principle. They are separate insertions in different parts of a long piece pointing at different products, and neither buyer is harmed by the other's presence. But it does put a ceiling on things, and the ceiling is credibility rather than space. A comparison article can carry two commercial placements and still read as an honest comparison. At 5, it is a directory with opinions attached, and the readers you were selling access to stop trusting it. So I kept it, which means turning down money for a slot I could physically fit. The second buyer, incidentally, is one of the 11 who never came back. He asked for a quote, got one, and never sent the target URL. The clause that separates the pros, the buyer who paid asked for 12 months and no rotation in writing before he sent money. No rotation means I will not swap his link out for someone else's in 3 months, and I will not quietly reorder the list, so his second position becomes his 7th. That second part is the one that matters, and most buyers never think to ask for it. Comparison articles get rewritten. The market moves, a tool gets acquired, something new launches, and you refresh the piece. If the deal only says a link stays live for 12 months, then technically you can honor it while sliding a paid second place down to 6th on the next rewrite. The link is still there, the value is gone. So as a seller, I now write the position into the terms, because if I do not, I will eventually break a deal I thought I was honoring. And as a buyer, you should insist on it. Why swaps are worse than cash. One of my 14 involved no money at all, a link swap with another company. We place links to them, they place links to us. Nobody invoices anybody. We placed ours. Two do follow links live on real pages weeks ago. We are owed 8 reciprocal links. We have received 0. Nobody is being dishonest here as far as I can tell. Their side has priorities and this sits below all of them. And there is no invoice, no due date, and no mechanism. That is exactly the problem with swaps. A cash deal has a moment where money moves and both parties know whether it happened. A swap has an indefinite obligation that decays quietly. If you do swaps, place your side last, or place one link and hold the rest until theirs appear. I did it the other way round and I am the one holding the bag. What I say no to, I turn down anything for gambling, adult, and the essay writing sites. Not out of principle so much as because one of those links changes what my page is to every other buyer. I also turn down requests to insert a link into an article where it makes no topical sense even at full price, and I have lost at least 2 of those 11 that way. A comparison article about news APIs is not going to carry a link to an unrelated e-commerce tool just because someone offered the money. That costs me revenue. It also means the placements I do sell are worth something, which is the entire business. The obligation ledger, one operational thing, and it is the least glamorous part of selling links. You have to write down what you owe. I keep a file with every placement I have sold, which article, which position, what anchor, what date it expires, and a note saying do not remove or reorder before that date. It exists because the risk is not that I would cheat someone deliberately. The risk is that 11 months from now I refresh a comparison article, reorder the rankings because the market changed, and silently break a 12-month no-rotation agreement I made and forgot. Without the file, that happens. The buyer notices before you do, and by then you have taken his money and quietly degraded what he bought. So if you sell placements, keep the ledger. It takes a minute per deal, and it is the difference between a business and a series of transactions people regret. Reading this backwards. If you are the buyer, take all of that and reverse it. Name the page and the position in your first message because it marks you as someone worth quoting properly. Get duration and no rotation in writing before you pay. Expect to cover the payment fee if you want buyer protections, and if you are offered a swap instead of a price, place your side second. What I look for when I am the one buying is up at thisodesk.com. Subscribe for SEO that has actually been tested.